Welcome back to the FloTrack podcast, an emergency FloTrack podcast. 4 hours after we last recorded in this exact spot, the meet's been called off. Not only has the indoor championships been canceled, the outdoor championships as well. Things escalated very quickly with a series of events, but the track is basically empty now. When we last went and spoke to you guys, we were discussing how it seemed like a normal pre-meet, but things quickly changed. Talked to a lot of the coaches, obviously a lot of disappointment throughout the track and field community here. Gordon, how are you feeling? We were on a plane this morning, and now the meet's over.
It is wild. Our colleague, Lincoln Shrike, who is not here, it was going to be a three-man team here in Albuquerque. Literally at, 7 in the morning, he texts us saying, I'm not coming, I'm out, And now the whole meet is over. I mean, we thought this was going to be like only Harvard wasn't going to be here, and we're all be like, why didn't Harvard show up? And now it is crazy. I think we should just go through the timeline, though, of how this all unfolded. It was literally like a snowball effect, and it just got bigger and bigger until the final thing dropped, and we were all like, all right, it's over.
Well, obviously, you could start it with Harvard.
Yeah, and okay, start with Harvard, yeah.
We could start with Harvard yesterday, right? Then you had
whatever. 2 days, it wasn't 2 days. Oh, it was yesterday.
It was yesterday. Good article on them on the site by Johanna Greschel that you guys should read if you haven't. Then there was, obviously, the stuff that happened in the NBA last night, not part of track and field, but I think obviously influenced it. This morning, the conference tournaments for basketball get canceled. No spectators
was announced when we landed.
Right, exactly. No spectators at all. Then we get here, we hear the ACC.
Well, no, hold on. We get here, and it is completely
normal. Yeah, sorry.
Skipped a step. There's so many athletes here. They're all warming up. Teams are here. They're all getting ready to go. It is like a normal track meet. All the coaches are just assuming everything is normal. And it clearly wasn't, because
we recorded a podcast.
Normal. And then the first big thing, it's ball drop?
Ball to drop, yes.
First ball that dropped was ACC.
Yeah, so ACC pulls out. Big Ten pulled out shortly after them. Now, the SEC had a policy in place of, hey, if you're already at a championship, you can stay there. But once you get back, everything's canceled through basically the rest of the month.
And ACC was weird, too. Like Florida State, they were asked to... They had to all go home to Florida State campus, quarantine themselves at Florida State campus for 12 days, and then they could go. It was like a weird. They had to fly back to Florida State to be quarantined.
Yeah, there's a whole other dimension here when you talk about just these institutions operating as like academic centers as well too.
So ACC, Big Ten,
right?
And we thought like, oh, it's gonna suck. And then we're like, wait, no Oliver Hoare, wait, no Alicia Monson, wait, the Notre Dame DMR won't get to run.
I think at that point, the prevailing sentiment was, then I started wandering around talking to all the other coaches. At that point, it was just a matter of when. It was not a matter of if. Pac-12, they put out a statement about basketball, but nothing about track and field. It was, hey, institution by institution. UCLA then said they were out. UW left the track and was out. And then, obviously, at that point, it was pretty clear where things were headed. The press conference got canceled, and then it was 2:17 local time here when the NCAA said all winter and spring championships have been canceled.
I was with I was near the Kentucky coach, and we were making a joke about how this is going to become an SEC Invitational.
Yeah.
Because all the other teams were leaving. And he was like, we're still ready to go. And then literally, I walked away from that conversation. 10 seconds later, I see the tweet, and I turn back, it's canceled. And he was like, just like,
I think some people were prepared for this meet to be canceled. I think a lot of people were prepared for this meet to be canceled. I don't think a lot of the programs were prepared for spring to be canceled.
Yes.
And I think that's what really hit people hard. And when you watch the interviews and you hear coaches discuss that about how just disappointed they are, how gutted they are for their teams and their programs, it just doesn't go, it goes beyond just this meet in Albuquerque. It's, well, what's going to happen when we get back to our campus? All these meets have been canceled. Outdoors been canceled. We talked about Stanford Invitational being canceled as well too. Like, outdoor season is essentially gone. I mean, on the collegiate level.
There's no need for the Texas relays anymore. There's no need for Florida relays. There's no need for. There's no more conference championships. All the conferences are done, and if there's no NCAAs, why? There's no point of having any NCAA collegiate type track meet.
Yeah.
And that also means there's very likely to be no high school track meet, and if there's no high school, no college. The pros, they're not going to have anywhere to run.
Yeah.
There's no Peyton Jordan now. Like,
We were talking.
I mean, we don't know if there's no Peyton Jordan, but I'm assuming there's no Peyton Jordan.
We were talking to a lot of coaches, and we were floating the Olympics thing. And
Yeah,
a
so
lot like
it's all dominoing.
yeah, exactly. And how they felt about it 24 hours ago versus now is drastically different when it comes to the Olympics. I talked to one coach, and he basically said, this coach said, when Rudy Gobert had it, that was it.
Yeah.
Like that was the thing that
was a domino.
And at that point they were planning for this thing to be canceled, at least from a team standpoint, that coach's team, because it was clear which way the wind was blowing there.
And it's like devastating too. I mean, obviously the virus is bigger than a sport, right? It's like we're just running in circles, we're just jumping in directions. Like in the end, that's not as important as someone's health, right? And so the correct thing would be like, this is a good call because it's all about in the best interest of health.
Yeah.
But there is that selfish like athlete perspective, right, where you work so hard for something.
Yeah.
And this could be also near the end. Like, it doesn't really, if you're a freshman, sophomore, you're kind of like, oh wow, that was wild. Remember when I missed out on that year? But if you're someone near the end, if you're someone who's having a breakout year, if you're someone who thinks like this is my time to like prove myself and like make a big step, it's devastating. You think of someone like Danny Jones.
Yeah.
You think of someone like Tyler Day, Joe Klecker, like these. I mean, not to say, but like these distance-based seniors, they were looking towards this season as a season to like run for a contract.
Yeah.
And now they have no races
Right.
to get. They're going to be based off of their junior performances, which aren't going to be as good as what their senior year performances could have been.
I just want to paint a picture of the track about, I don't know, maybe a half hour after it was canceled. It was bizarre. And I hope to do this in words later, but I'll attempt to do it now. Written word later. Now I'll speak it. I mean, you had athletes crying.
Yeah.
You had some athletes who like didn't know what to do, so they started running races on the track, kind of screwing around. But I think part of that was like cathartic of like, I'm here, like I'm ready to go. Let's do something. Yeah. You had people taking pictures. You had a lot of hugs. You had kind of that weird, I'm not sure what like to do, sort of like.
I saw a lot of like throwing like shoes to the ground.
Yeah.
In anger.
But some of them I think was just like sometimes when stuff in general in life. I'm gonna teach you about life right now, Gordon.
Hit me.
Like we laugh when we don't know how to process like difficult things.
Yeah.
And there was almost like a lot of like just weird, awkward giddiness of like not happy that it was canceled, but just like I don't know what to do with my emotions now.
Yeah.
Because everything has been geared towards this event, and now not only has this meet changed, my whole life has changed. Like this is a life-changing event for a lot of these athletes, both in terms of contracts or just personal fulfillment goals. I mean, a lot of them being exposed to something this, everybody has different life experiences, but this is sort of like, it kind of makes you look at the world differently a little bit. I don't think I'm going too far in saying that. And same thing with the coaches. Like I talked to Carl Lewis, I said, Carl, you've seen a lot in your day. Like you've been involved in some crazy stuff. And he's like, yeah, this is at the top of the list. Like this is at the top of the list because you don't plan on a meet being canceled because of a pandemic that's spreading throughout the world. Like that's just not on the list. Like when you get the coaching handbook on day one,
you don't know what you're supposed to say in reaction to this.
Yeah.
And it's not even just this event. It's like your season, like your season next. Like
it's not like those are winding down either.
So because sometimes track meets get canceled if there's like a hurricane. Like oh man, I really wanted to run my last race at this Florida meet.
Yeah.
But weather, like, because we've dealt with cancellations of meets, but for something like you not only can't, but like you don't have a season, you don't have practice. Like these athletes can't practice anymore, right?
Yeah.
Practice is canceled.
Right.
Like
that's what I'm saying. Like and your identity is tied up in this.
And like and you can't delay track is a weird way where like you can't really delay it. Whereas like we were talking about at NBA, like they can do like a 6-week delay and then go all the way into August or September. They're not going to have that for running. One, because of the college system, and even if you're in a pro system, most likely the Olympics and trials are on chopping blocks. They're not going to delay that. Like people aren't going to be like a year of your potential is basically wiped away in a way because your age. Think about age too. Like I did an analysis where like the best athletes really only have 4 years of their peak.
Yeah.
And that typically is ages 22 to 26. If you're like a 22, 23-year-old here, you just lost out on a year of opportunity and like Now you're shrunk to like you have to do it in 3 years instead of 4. It's like,
well, and if the Olympics get canceled, right? Think about how many careers were altered by the U.S. boycott in 1980.
yeah.
And if that's something similar, like if the Olympics are canceled this year, think how that just alters the trajectory of so many people's lives. It's it's pretty big. I don't think, like I said, coming into this week, we didn't think it would get to this point.
Yeah.
And maybe you could see the scenario where, oh yeah, they're going to cancel indoors, but I don't think the whole season being gone. And for it to be announced, like, we're at the apex of indoors, and they canceled the apex of outdoors.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty crazy too. I mean, that would be like the 2020 Super Bowl. They announced that the 2021 Super Bowl isn't going to happen either. It's wait a minute. I'm trying to process this, and then you're throwing in the next thing. Like, how am I supposed to?
Because it would be like, oh, we missed out on indoor. Whatever. There's no indoor Olympics anyway, so let's go all in on outdoor, and they don't have that thing to go all in on. And again, for seniors, they don't. Like, sure, you could argue like they could maybe get another year of eligibility.
Yeah.
But what if they're planning on graduating? Like, you just assume they want to do another whole year of school. Like, for a 5th year, do they really want to do 6 years of college? Like,
well, a lot of them are grads.
Grads. Yeah. Like, it's just not like. I mean, it's safe to say there are someone like Joe Klecker, Danny Jones, Tyler Day. They ran their last collegiate race without even knowing it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wild.
We brought up the idea of redshirt earlier in our 4 hours ago podcast, which you can check out. It's completely out of date.
It still has a little bit of relevance.
It's got some nostalgia to it.
Yeah.
It was a simpler, more innocent time. And we talked to all the coaches about that. It was unanimous on my front. I don't know how many coaches you talked about whether or not they should allow this to be a redshirt year. It was unanimous on my end.
And I think they will allow it, but the question is, you still have to go to school again.
Yeah.
You know, like that's, you still go take classes. Like, these kids
aren't
aren't
just on a full scholarship either, right?
That too, yeah. It's just like, it's not, and it's the patience. Like, do you really want, like, sometimes you want to move on and grow up and like not be in college anymore and like.
Well, that's the whole thing. This whole crisis has put a pause on everything.
Yeah.
It's put a pause on the jobs, our hobbies, and even just that whole idea of maturation in a way, right? It's made us stop and be like, all right, well, we're just not going to have that for a couple months, and then we need to figure out the course forward. I mean, some of the coaches I talked to were optimistic. I mean, they're looking for silver linings. Hey, we'll get through it. We'll regroup. We'll figure out how to do it. Like, it's almost like they had thought that this was a possibility and had already processed that, and we're moving on to like the next.
I just
steps.
think it's also easier for coaches to have more perspective because they have how many, like, they're not competing, so they have an infinite amount of time to be a coach.
Yeah.
Whereas to be an elite athlete, you have a small amount. Your window is small, and it just got smaller because of what could be a domino effect to cancel an Olympic year.
Yeah. Well, all the interviews are up on the site. People can watch them. You can see Matt Bowling run 50 meters.
Yeah. Well, no, so the Virginia Tech said, screw it, we're going to run a time trial.
You don't even give away the ending.
I'm not sure who they were, because they ran 51. I shouldn't tell. They didn't run fast, but I don't think they were the 400 meter runners. I guess maybe they were the 400 alternates for the DMR.
Okay.
Maybe that's what they were.
They were living their best life, and I enjoyed it.
They were happy. People were cheering.
It was awesome.
It was like a little bit come together moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And then again, there's a cameo from Matt Bowling, so you can check all that out on the site. I think we're going to try to record again tomorrow. We have a hotel booked through Monday.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're going to do.
Through Monday or through Sunday? You're staying through Monday?
Wait a minute. When are we coming back?
Sunday.
Sunday, right? Sunday morning.
Are we staying here? Are we just going to have like...
Did we just become best friends?
What are we going to do in Albuquerque for 72 hours?
I'm going to be looking at flights tonight. I'm going to write up this story, and then we'll figure it out. But you're going to try to organize a race?
Yeah, we're going to try to organize a race tonight. I don't know if it's going to happen.
If you're listening and you want a race...
I did get a text that there are 2 teams ready to go.
Okay.
And they're 2 Big Ten teams. So might get a little Big Ten rematch. We almost had a Big 12 team. This is we're trying to put together a FloTrack Invitational mile. Unofficial. If they're here, they're fit, they might as well run. But we're trying to make it happen tonight. If we do, we'll film it, and that'll be great. That'll
be fun. That would be the perfect end to what has been a surreal last 2 days. All right, he's Gordon. I'm Kevin.
It's a short podcast, 15 minutes.
It's an emergency pod. You got to get it out. Got to get it quick to the people. Add it up to the 30 minutes we did before, right? We're at 45 minutes.
So in the end, what What do we call this season? Like, what's the season? Did it not count?
Indoors?
Yeah.
It was a suspended season. I mean, if you don't have a championship, it's not a full season.
Yeah.
So it was paused and never to be resumed, I guess. And I think the outdoor season is just, you could just say it's completely canceled.
So who won NCAA?
Let's talk about that tomorrow.
Okay.
Let me process a little bit.
Sure.
Let me figure out.
We need to create our hypothetical.
Do you want
NCAA
to?
indoors.
Yes, we can do that. We'll have plenty of time to do it.
We'll do that later.
Hey, listen.
We have a lot of things.
We have a lot of time with no actual results. Hypothetical is now our middle name.
We decided to create a daily podcast the same year where there's going to be no track and field events for like months.
That's basically the embodiment of this GIF right here. This meme.
We're going to have to create content out of nothing.
You're just not realizing that, huh?
Because I realized
I just saw the light bulb go on.
I just realized it because
Maybe we should keep going. Let's not turn it off.
Because last week it was kind of hard because there wasn't much that happened, right? It was just
now imagine.
NAIA and JUCO happened, and we're like, okay. And I was like struggling for ideas. And now that everything's canceled, there's nothing new to be canceled.
No. You're right, and I think it was funny to watch you just come to that realization about 12 seconds
This
ago.
podcast is going to be hard.
Yeah.
We might have to change it from an hour to like a 20 minute.
2 hours?
to the 20 minute. I don't know.
Hypothetical London Marathon? Well, that hasn't been canceled yet. Hypothetical Boston Marathon?
Boston Marathon moved to September.
Well, I know, but we'll talk about it on Patriots Day, though.
I guess we should start. Oh, here we go. Let's start. What's the over/under for when the Olympics gets canceled?
This is depressing.
So what's today's date? Today is March 12th.
I think they'll make a decision in the next month and a half.
Month and a half.
They'll make a decision before. Let me say June 1st. I'll say June 1st.
June 1st, the decision will be made.
Yeah. Actually, May 1st. May 1st.
May 1st?
May 1st. Yeah, I'll move that up a month.
I think they're going to wait till like May 25th.
Okay. What's the Diamond League? I mean, people are doing sports again in China.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people are going to want to. The problem is getting people there and flying and all that other stuff. I mean, the first Diamond League meet is in Doha in April.
Actually, now that I think about it, I honestly think the Olympics might still happen. I think that in 30 days' time, 45 days' time, we're going to have a better understanding of the virus. And I think collegiate athletics is going to be a lost cause. But I think we're going to have a bunch of like pop-up track meets start occurring for people to get times. Like, I think that's what's going to happen.
Here's the thing, too. When we're talking about the Olympics, yes, the United States needs a trials because of the system.
Yeah.
How many countries out there really need a trials?
They don't.
How many countries out there even have a trials?
Correct.
They have no problem just picking a team. The problem is the infrastructure being set up in Tokyo, and when you decide to cancel that and pull out of that, right? Because you don't want a situation where it's, I mean, we saw how many people were mad at this track meet being canceled. The Olympics, bigger.
A little bigger track meet.
Bigger. So I think it more has to do with like logistics of like volunteers, hotel rooms, food, sanitation, all that other stuff. Picking the team is like the lowest priority. Because we'll come up with a way, like even the U.S.
Do you think there's a chance we have an Olympics without an Olympic trials?
Yeah, yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's going to be controversial.
Yeah. Of course, but then
let's make our teams right now. Who do you got?
Would you rather save this for the other pods? I mean,
we'll do one event per pod.
Would you rather the U.S. doesn't send a team? I mean, that's what they should be saying. Would you rather the U.S. doesn't send a team, or would you rather that they come up with some way to pick it? And I don't. You're right. Maybe by the end of June, right? Olympic trials, mid-June. Yeah. Maybe they'll be able to do it. But at least there's going to be some amendments for qualifying to the trials. But again, this is an American thing. I think most other countries will be able to have, okay, here's 3 names, or here's 2 names, here's 1 name.
I mean, they could literally make it so not even coaches, like literally they're only like 8 people in the stadium and 1 official every time. So like they keep it within 20 people inside of the stadium at all times.
Yeah. Which I'm sure they're looking at. I'm sure that they're pursuing all the other options. But in the U.S., if they're not able to have qualifying meets, they're going to have to get creative with how they get the team. But I would think most people would prefer that and be like, well, why does the U.S. not have any 800-meter runners? They didn't have trials, so.
One collateral damage you can tell our listeners and our viewers, if they're watching the video version, is our plan. For those who don't know, last year at NCAA Indoors, that is when we came up with the decision to follow Houston for the outdoor season. We saw their indoor performance. We were like, this is a team that has potential outdoors.
Yeah.
It'll be a fun team to follow. Carl Lewis, Leroy Burrell. And we talked to Leroy and Carl after NCAA Indoors, and we're like, hey, let's do this. And they were like, we're in. We were planning on doing that here. We were planning on seeing how this unfolds, see some top teams, and be able to pitch to do a series on them. But now that there's no
season.
so there's no series. So we're going to have to figure something else out and figure a way to get some interesting content that isn't college-based. So maybe at the
There's a lot to figure out.
Send us an email if you have any ideas.
FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com. Yes.
Send us an email for series ideas. We were thinking, some rivalries maybe, pro rivalries. We don't know. If you have them, send it to us.
With no meets.
And we'll explore to see if we can get some great content on a eventless upcoming schedule.
Yeah. This
But the pod
podcast
will
will
be
be
in
us trying to figure out what we're going to do.
The podcast will always be for here. We're not abandoning the podcast.
No, we're not. We're not because we just started it. And you can find it on Spotify, Google Play,
Stitcher,
Apple Podcasts, and then you can watch the video
and
on
FloTrack.com.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Are we good?
That's it. We ended it. I had to get to 20 minutes.
You did a good job.
It's not a
getting it 20.
podcast if it's not 20.
I like how you pushed it.
Yeah.
All the way. That's the emergency pod from Albuquerque. We'll potentially be back with an update again tomorrow.
And maybe we do a mile tonight with some undercover teams.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Stay tuned. We'll talk to you guys later.